Intelligence collection management is the process of managing and organizing the collection of intelligence from various sources. The collection department of an intelligence organization may attempt basic validation of what it collects, but is not supposed to analyze its significance. The difference between validation and analysis is argued in the U.S. intelligence community, where the National Security Agency may try to interpret information when such interpretation is the job of another agency. Collection disciplines. Disciplines which post-process raw data more than collect it are: human intelligence, imagery intelligence, signals intelligence, measurement and signature intelligence, technical intelligence, open source intelligence, collection guidance. At the director level and within the collection organization, collection guidance assigns collection to one or more source managers who may order reconnaissance missions, budget for agent recruitment, or both. Research. This may be an auction for resources, and there is joint UK-US research on applying more formal methods. One method is semantic matchmaking, based on ontology, originally a field of philosophy but finding applications in intelligence searching. Researchers match missions to the capabilities of available resources, defining ontology as a set of logical axioms designed to account for the intended meaning of a vocabulary. The requester is asked, what are the requirements of a mission? These include the type of data to be collected, the priority of the request, and the need for secrecy in collection. Collection system managers are asked to specify the capabilities of their assets. Precis ontology focuses on ISTAR sensors, but also considers HUMINT, OSINT, and possible methodologies. The intelligence model compares the specification of a mission against the specification of available assets to assess the utility or fitness for purpose of available assets. Based on these assessments, obtain a set of recommended assets for the mission. Either decide whether there is a solution, a single asset or combination of assets, that satisfies the requirements of the mission, or alternatively provide a ranking of solutions according to their relative degree of utility. NATO collection guidance. In NATO, the questions driving collection management are priority intelligence requirements. PIRs are a component of collection coordination and intelligence requirements management focused on the collection process, uniting the intelligence effort to maneuver through decision points. These questions, refined into information requirements, enable the collection manager to focus assets on a problem. Without this synchronization, it would be impossible to ensure that the intelligence focus meets the commander's requirements and priorities. Discipline selection. When a PIR defining the information to be collected exists, discipline specialists and resource schedulers select the appropriate collection system and plan the mission, taking into account the capabilities and limitations of collection platforms, weather, terrain, technical capabilities, and opponents' countermeasures. Determine the potential for successful collection. Through an understanding of all available platforms, the collection manager synchronizes available assets, theater and core collection, national capabilities and coalition resources to maximize capabilities. The most desirable platform may not be available. Weather and enemy air defense might limit the practicality of UAVs and fixed-wing IMINT platforms. If air defense is the limitation, planners might request support from a national-level IMINT satellite. If a satellite will do the job, the orbits of available satellites may not be suitable for the requirement. If weather is the issue, it might be necessary to substitute MASINT sensors which can penetrate the weather and get some of the information. SIGINT might be desired, but terrain masking and technical capabilities of available platforms might require a space-based sensor, or exploring whether HUMINT assets might be able to provide information The collection manager must take these effects into consideration and advise the commander on the situational awareness available for planning in execution. Other sources may take some time to collect the necessary information. MASINT depends on a library of signatures of normal sensor readings, so deviations stand out. Cryptanalytics (COMINT) can take considerable time to enter into a crypto system, with no guarantee of success. Support resource management unavailable. Appropriate collection platform does not mean it will be useful if the facilities needed to receive and process the information are unavailable. Two factors affect this process: the physical capabilities of the intelligence systems and the training and capabilities of the intelligence section. Collection platforms able to collect tens of thousands of pieces of information per hour need receivers which can accept that volume. The collection capability, even with self-generating reports, can quickly overwhelm inexperienced or understaffed analysts. While the CM is primarily concerned with collection, they must also know if analysis for the requested system has the resources to reduce and analyze the sensor data within a useful length of time. IMINT and SIGINT ground stations may be able to accept sensor data, but the networks and information processing systems may be inadequate to get data to analysts and commanders. An example is imagery intelligence, derived from UAVs and fixed-wing IMINT platforms. Commanders and staff are accustomed to receiving quality imagery products and UAV feeds for planning and execution of their missions. In exercises, this is often done with high-speed fixed networks. In a mobile, fluid battle it would be nearly impossible to develop a network capable of carrying the same amount of information. The CM must decide if an analytic report will answer the question when a hard copy image or video is required. The CM must inform staff members of the cost to the IT network and HQ bandwidth. Collection management is the cornerstone on which intelligence support to ARRC operations is built. Since the starting point of the collection process is the commander's PIRs, they are a critical component of the staff planning process and support the commander's decision-making. CIA collection guidance intelligence requirements were introduced after World War II, after an initial phase where field personnel decided priorities. An interim period began in which requirements were considered as desirable but were not thought to present any special problem. Perhaps the man in the field did, after all, need some guidance. If so, the expert in Washington had only to jot down a list of questions and all would be well. In a third phase, a consensus was established that a formal requirement structure was needed. When that machinery was set up, specialized methodologies for requirement management needed to be developed. The methodologies first needed were those used against the Sino-Soviet bloc, and radical changes in the threat environment may make some of those methodologies inappropriate. Requirements may be cast in terms of analysis technique, collection method, subject matter, source type or priority. Hefter's article says that not every problem is a special case, but may be a problem central to the very nature of the requirements process. One cannot help feeling that too little of the best thinking of the community has gone into these central problems, into the development, in a word, of an adequate theory of requirements, but there is often a conspicuous hiatus between requirements produced at a managerial level and the requirements produced on the working level. Dealing with general matters has itself become a specialty. We lack a vigorous exchange of views between generalists and specialists, requirements officers and administrators, members of all agencies, analysts in all intelligence fields, practitioners of all collection methods, which might lead at least to a clarification of ideas and at best to a solution of some common problems. Priority-based needs must be presented with the best way to meet those needs based on an effective use of the collection means available. Hefter's paper centers on the management of priorities for the use of collection assets, three factors which must be balanced: administration and system, intellectual discipline, using the analytical method, training and responsibilities of the individual intelligence officer. Each of the three kinds answers a deep felt need, has a life of its own, and plays a role of its own in the total complex of intelligence guidance. Since Hefter focused on the problem of priorities, he concerned himself chiefly with policy directives, which set overall priorities. Within that policy, requests are also very much in the picture since priorities must govern the fulfillment. Requirements. A collection requirement is a statement of information to be collected. Several tendencies hinder precision. Analysts publish lists of their needs in the hope that someone will satisfy them. Theorists and administrators want a closely knit system where all requirements can be fed into a single machine, integrated, ranged by priorities and allocated as directives to all parts of the collection apparatus. Collectors demand specific requests for information, keyed to their capabilities. These differing desires can cause friction or complement one another. The tendencies can complement each other if brought into balance, but their coexistence has often been marked with friction. The characteristics of a requirement are: need, compulsion or command, request. In intelligence, the meaning of require has been redefined. Under this interpretation, one person makes a request to another of equal status who fulfills it as best they can. There is an honor system on both sides. The requester vouches for the validity of the requirement. The collector is free to reject it. If he accepts it, the collector implies assurance that he will do his best to fulfill it. The relationship is free from compulsion. The use of direct request appeals to collectors, who find that it provides them with more viable, collectible requirements than any other method. It sometimes appeals to requester analysts, who can get more requirements accepted than would be possible otherwise. The elements of need, compulsion and request are embodied in three types of collection requirements. The inventory of needs, addressed to the community at large and to nobody in particular; the directive, addressed by a higher to a lower echelon; and the request, addressed by a customer to a collector. Inventory of needs. Intelligence Watch centers and interdisciplinary groups, such as the Counterterrorism Center, can create and update requirements lists. Commercial customer relationship management software or the more powerful enterprise relationship management systems might be adapted to managing the workflow separate from the most sensitive content. No collector is directed to collect on the basis of these lists, and the lists are not addressed to any single collector. CRM and social networking software routinely build ad hoc alliances for specific projects. Branch and station chiefs have refused to handle the periodic requirements list because these are not really requirements, i.e., they are not requests to the clandestine collector for information which only he can provide. Intelligence requirements in the PRL may be crafted to elicit information from a specific source, sidestepping a request process which could have ended in denial. PRLs are sometimes used for guidance, despite their description as inventories. Revised 3 times a year, they are the most up-to-date requirement statements and the main subject is current affairs of political significance. Although the inventory of needs is a valuable analytical instrument in the intelligence production office which originates it cannot set priorities. Directives. Although short, prioritized directives for collection missions have come from top-level interagency policy boards. Directives more often come from lower managerial levels. They are most useful in the following circumstances: where a command relationship exists, where there is only one customer, or one customer is more important than the others, where a single method of collection, with precise, limited, comprehensible capabilities, is involved. Technical collection methods are the least ambiguous, with meaningful priorities and actual, scheduled resources. HUMINT is flexible, but uses a wider range of methods. Agencies requiring HUMINT prepare lists of priorities which establish goals, provide a basis for planning and summarize the information needs of consumers. Requests. Most requirements fall into this category, including the majority of those with requirement tracking identifiers in a community-wide numbering system administered by a central group. Requests vary from a 20-word question to a 50-page questionnaire and asking for one fact or 1,000 related facts. Its essence is the relationship between requester and collector. A variant on the request is the solicited requirement, in which the request itself is requested by the collector. The collector informs the customer of their capability and asks for requirements tailored to it. The consumer and collector then negotiate a requirement and priority. In clandestine collection, solicited requirements are regularly used for legal travelers, for defectors and returnees, and for others whose capability or knowledge can be used only through detailed guidance or questioning. Solicited requirements blend into jointly developed ones, in which collector and consumer work out the requirement. Administration. A department which collects intelligence primarily to satisfy its own requirements usually maintains an internal requirements system, with its own terminology, categories and priorities, with a single requirements office to direct its collection on behalf of its consumers. One requirements office, or a separate branch of it, represents collector and consumer in dealing with other agencies. Where consumers depend on many collectors and collections serve consumers throughout the community. No such one-to-one system is possible, and each major component has its own requirements office. Requirements officers are middlemen, with an understanding of the problems of those they represent and those whom they deal with on the outside. A consumer requirements officer must find the best collection bargain he can for his analyst client, and a collector requirements officer must find the best use for the resources he represents and protect them from unreasonable demands. Source sensitivity. Intelligence taken from sensitive sources cannot be used without exposing the methods or persons providing it. A strength of the British penetration of the German Enigma crypto system was that no information learned from it or other systems was used for operations without a more plausible reason for the information leak that the Germans would believe. If the movement of a ship was learned through deciphered Enigma, a reconnaissance aircraft was sent into the same area and allowed to be seen by the Axis, so the detection was attributed to the aircraft. When an adversary knows that a crypto system has been broken, they usually change systems immediately, cutting off a source of information and turning the brake against the attacker, or leave the system unchanged and use it to deliver disinformation. In strategic arms limitation, a different sensitivity applied. Early in the discussion, the public acknowledgement of satellite photography elicited concern that the Soviet Union could be particularly disturbed by public recognition of this capability, satellite photography, which it has veiled, separating source from content. Early in the collection process, the identity of the source is removed from reports to protect clandestine sources from being discovered. A basic model is to separate the raw material into three parts. True source identity, very closely held, pseudonyms, code names or other identifiers. All reports from the source. Since the consumer will need some idea of source quality, it is not uncommon in the intelligence community to have several variants on the source identifier. At the highest level, the source might be described as a person with access to the exact words of cabinet meetings. At the next level of sensitivity, a more general description could be a source with good knowledge of the discussions in cabinet meetings.